So last time, while doing chapter 16, we concluded the description of those with demonic nature. I discussed with you that the first part deals with divine nature, second part deals with, or the major part deals with demonic nature, and the third part of the 16th chapter deals with the remedy or how to overcome demonic nature. I will make it very simple for you. As long as your ego is attenuated, weakened, diminished, transcended, extinguished, you come on the side of the divine person. As long as the ego is aggrandized, expanded, increased, given free, unchecked reign, that individual is demonic. So the crux between the divine person and the demonic person is only this. One accepts that their ego is on the path of diminution and therefore they become sattvic and on the way to attaining salvation by transcending Prakriti altogether. And the other is demonic because that person has a strong sense of autobiographical self which he allows to reign unchecked, which he allows his ego to act unchecked. And therefore, with this unchecked attitude of his ego, he believes he is everything, he is the master, he is the controller. In fact, he actually believes that he is God. He does not recognize any authority, and therefore he becomes increasingly demonic and goes on the downward path to hell through lust, anger, and greed. Now we come to the concluding verses in the Bhagavad-Gita of the 16th chapter. And in this 16th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna now explains why the demonic become demonic. Yahash in 16.23, Krishna gives the reason why they become demonic. And in text 24, he explains how they can change direction. In 16.23, Bhagavan says, Yah Shastra Vidim Utsrijaya Vartate Kamakarata Na sa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na param gatim. One who disregards the scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims neither attains perfection, nor happiness, nor does he attain the supreme destination. So Krishna explains that the root cause of developing a demonic nature is that the person rejects all scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whim and his own fancy. And in text 24, chapter 16, Krishna explains the solution. Tasmat shastram pramanam te karya vyavastitau Jnatva Shastra Vidanoktam Karma Kartum Iharasi. You should understand what is to be done and what is not to be done. You should understand what is duty and what is not duty. You should know what actions are permitted and what actions are forbidden by the regulations of the scripture, by the direction of the scripture. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may become gradually elevated. Jnatva Shastra Vidanuktam Karma Kartum Iharasi. Having understood the regulations of the scripture, he should now endeavor to work at it so that he may be elevated. So, what is the solution? The solution Krishna gives is the solution of following the scripture rather than rejecting the scripture. If you go to chapter 16 and you look at how he landed in this position, it's very clear. Because here in chapter 16, the demonic person goes on, starts by saying very clearly that they don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done because they don't refuse to take guidance from the Shaastra. In 16.7, he explains, pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasuraha. They don't know what is to be done, they don't know what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found within them. And what is their belief? In 16.8, Krishna points out, asatyam apratishtam te jagadahuranishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kim anyat kamahetukam. They say this world is an illusion, it's unreal, it's imaginary. There is no foundation. There is no God in control. They believe indeed that they are God. It is produced only out of desire. And there is no cause for this world except lust and desire. And when they start with this assumption without taking guidance of the Shastra, all their problems begin. Etam drishtim avashtabhya nashtatmano alpa buddhaya prabhavantya ugra karmanah shaya jagato hitah. Following such conclusions, the demonic who are lost to themselves, who have no intelligence, engage in unbeneficial and horrible works meant to destroy the world. So the solution given is that he should follow the Shastra. Now, what Shastra should he follow? The Shastra is divided into three varieties: Shruti, Smriti, which includes the Dharma Shastra, the Puranas, the Pancharatra, and so on. But if you go back into the Bhagavad-Geeta, at chapter 2, texts 42 to 43, you will find that Krishna rejects the misuse of the Vedas, because the scripture, the Vedas, can also be misused. And when the Vedas are misused for pleasure and profit, for material gain, then these same Vedas prevent you from transcending Prakriti. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vapashchitah vedavadarataha partha nanyadastiti vadinah kamatmana swargapara janma karma phala pradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogashvarya gatim prati. The people who misuse the Vedas with limited understanding quote the flowery words of the Vedas and advocate ostentatious ritual for elevation to heaven and presume no higher principles described. They glorify only those portions of the Vedas that please their senses, and they perform pompous ritualistic ceremonies for attaining high birth, opulence, sensual enjoyment, and elevation to higher planets. भोगैश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तय परत चेतसाम व्यवसायत्मिका बुद्धि समाधौ न विद्यते. And for such people who misuse the Vedas for the sake of enjoyment, for the sake of acquiring wealth, such people are unable to get the resolute determination in order to reach God. So text 2.45 gives you an important indication. Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshem Atmavan. The Vedas, Krishna says, which in 16.24 he is recommending, they deal with the three gunas. Rise above these three gunas to a state of pure spiritual consciousness. Free yourself from dualities. Become fixed in the absolute truth. Without concern for gain and safety, be situated on the spiritual platform. यावान अर्थ उदपाने संप्लुतोदके सर्वतः संप्लुतोदके तावान सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्रह्मणस्य विजानतः. That all the purposes of the Vedas are fulfilled by one who knows God. Because similarly, just like a small pond, its purpose is fulfilled by a large reservoir of water, so also all the purposes of the Vedas are fulfilled by one who knows the absolute truth and knows God. So it's true. In 16.24, Krishna is recommending that one follow the scripture. But when Krishna is recommending that one follow the scripture, he is also has indicated the scripture deals with the gunas. Isn't that confusing? And the answer lies in Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nishtraigunya Bhavarjuna. So Krishna wants you to eventually transcend the gunas. And this message is meant for those who are in Sattva Guna. But how does one reach Sattva Guna? How does one reach this divine nature? One reaches this divine nature through following the Vedas. Krishna points out very clearly that the Vedas, following the Vedas, one can purify oneself to come to the platform of divine nature or sattvic nature. And having attained this sattvic nature, leaving Rajagun and Tamagun behind through following the Vedas, then indeed one rises beyond the gunas. So it's a stepwise progression. The first step is to move from Tamagun and Rajagun to Sattvagun, which is done by following the Vedas, and how I will explain to you. And then, having reached Sattvagun, you have reached that platform from where you can move to that state which is beyond the gunas. So this is the crux of the matter. Vedas help to purify Rajagun and Tamagun so that you reach Sattvagun. And having reached Sattvagun, then you are qualified to transcend the gunas altogether. So instructions given to Arjun as one in Sattvagun is different from instructions given in the 16th chapter to one who is in Tamo and Rajagun, the demonic person, which Arjun is not, and neither are you. But to purify ourselves of the tamasic and rajasic elements within us and to allow for a predominance of sattva-gun, we need to follow the Vedas. As I've mentioned earlier, the gunas are not harmful. Sattva-gun is for harmony, acquiring knowledge. Rajagun is for activity, and Tamagun is for rest and recuperation. The problems of the gunas arise when we identify with them. For when we identify with Tamagun, we get heedlessness, laziness, sloth, ignorance. When we identify with Rajagun, we get lust, anger, and greed. And when we identify with Sattvagun, all our 9 gates of our body are illuminated with knowledge. And we are then on the path to transcending the gunas. Although Sattvagun also can entrap you. How does it entrap you? It entraps you through attachment to knowledge and to happiness. So how do the Vedas purify one? The Vedas purify one through restraints or constraints and also through observances. By telling you what not to do and also by telling you what to do. Which is more important? Is it more important to know what to do, or is it more important to adhere to what one should not do? The answer really is that you progress entirely because of what you do not do. A famous saint has said that what is the use of a tiger who fasts on Ekadashi when on Dwadashi, the next day, he eats a cow and a Brahmin? Of course, that cow and Brahmin who are eaten by the tiger are the cause of such sin that it can never be made up by the tiger fasting on Ekadashi. So it's very important to know what not to do and adhere to what not to do before one goes on to what one should do. You know, we have so many festivals and celebrations. We have so many pandals and so many deities that are immersed through the year. The largest pandals, the most opulent celebrations are often, or at least were often, funded by gangsters, by crooks, by local godfathers, criminal godfathers. So do you think that that is the way to behave? Does that make one more sattvic? Certainly not. So first you should understand what one should not do. So to understand what one should not do is laid down by the Shaastra, and this Shaastra starts with the Vedas. In the Vedas, one should understand that there are behavioral constraints, and these behavioral constraints operate at 3 levels. The first level is the cosmic constraint, which is called Rita versus Anrita. What is the meaning of Rita and Anrita? Rita means according to nature, according to the cosmic order. And Anrita means against the cosmic order. For example, you are the Kshetrajna. You are the Jivatma. You are the individual infinitesimal Purusha. You are not, in fact, Prakriti. You are not this body, mind, intelligence, or ego. But because you imagine that you are the body and mind and ego, therefore what happens is that you are engaging in Anrita. You are going against the cosmic order. So this is the primary or root cause of all the problems of a demonic nature. So the deepest cause or deepest restraint is that one has to follow Rita rather than Anrita. You have to go with nature, you have to go with the cosmic order. You have to realize that you are indeed not the doer. You are indeed but an observer of Prakriti, which is under the administration, the direction of Bhagavan. The second level of restraint comes at the ethical and social level. This is called dharma and adharma. So you can say that in the early Vedic section, you have Rita and Anrita. In the middle Vedic section, you have dharma versus adharma. So dharma versus adharma is indicative of how one must conduct oneself in the world. Indeed, dharma is a very complex word. It means many different things according to the context in which it is used. But indeed, dharma means that which sustains and that which maintains. What do you mean by sustains and maintains? The Mahabharata celebrated definition which says, Dharmo dharayate prajaha. It is the infrastructure that holds the entire universe together. And when everyone functions according to dharma, then automatically, eventually, what happens is that the universe functions perfectly for the prosperity, benefit, and spiritual evolution of everyone. So, what is dharma? I'll simplify this for you. There is the dharma of the Kshetrajna, and there is the dharma of the Prakriti which accompanies it. The dharma of the Prakriti that accompanies the individual Kshetrajna or the individual soul is to fulfill the purpose of its creation. And to fulfill the purpose of its creation, it has to act according to the nature for which it was created. Which means that this Prakriti, which accompanies you, the soul, has indeed a swadharma. It has a swadharma according to the guna that is predominant, and two, according to the karma or the activity it performs. So you have the swadharma of the body, mind, intelligence, and ego, and then you have the dharma of the soul. And the dharma of the soul is to constantly be focused on God. Whereas the dharma of the body is to function according to its inner nature and according to the work that it has been allocated by destiny. Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana abhyarchaya siddhim vindati manavaha. And each person, by performing his God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice to the all-pervading Lord, attains perfection. Similarly, having understood this, what is paradharma? How do you contravene? How do you act contrary to dharma? When you attempt to do paradharma. Paradharma means when you try to do somebody else's duty. Bhagavad-Geeta says, better to do your own duty imperfectly than to do somebody else's duty perfectly. So you must engage in that dharma, which is your own swadharma. And you should not engage in trying to do somebody else's dharma. So act according to your own nature, your own work, and your own duties. Don't try to act according to somebody else's nature and somebody else's duties. Then we come to the next level, which is achara. We have talked about Rita, Anrita. We have talked about Dharma, Adharma. We come to what is called Yama and Niyama. And most of what we know in terms of yama and niyama comes from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, where there are 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. But actually, these are derived from the Vedas. And the Vedas have what is known as the Shandilya Upanishad. And the Shandilya Upanishad, belonging to the Atharva Vedic tradition, is one of the principal yoga Upanishads. And it offers the most systematic elaboration of yama and niyama. Yama means how we should behave, and niyama means what are the disciplines of observance of the inner life. So, restraints in outer life and attitude in inner life. Yama and niyama. This is very important because these actually protect society from individuals who have a high degree of Rajagun and Tamagun. These are really, it helps to purify you, no doubt, but the primary purpose of these actions is to protect society. So in Yama, you have ahimsa. You don't injure other people unnecessarily, egregiously, wantonly. After ahimsa, you have satya, that is truth. Ashteya, which is you don't steal anything or aspire to steal anything. Brahmacharya, or sexual restraint. Krishna says in Bhagavad-Geeta, Dharma aviruddho kamosmi. I am that sex life which is not contrary to religious principle. So you don't go around having sex with everybody. You have sexual restraint according to religious principles. Daya, which is compassion towards all beings in all conditions. Arjava, which is straightforwardness, transparency, absence of crookedness in thought, word, and deed. Kshama, forbearance, the ability to tolerate, remaining equanimous even when you're provoked. Dhriti, which is steadiness, you do not waver under adversity. Mitahara, that means you don't overeat. You only eat as much as is necessary for your physical needs. And Saucha, which is purity. You don't act in the world in a manner of selfishness or aggrandizing the self. You act in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion within the world. So in Patanjali has taken only 5 out of these 10. But these are the original 10 that are there in the Shandilya Upanishad. Similarly, you come to Niyama, which is tapas, austerity, santosha, contentment. Ashtikya means faith in the Vedas, Guru and Shaastra. Dana, which is giving. Ishvara Pujana, which is worship of the Lord. Siddhanta Shravana, hearing about philosophical truths that are present within the Shastra. Ri, which is modesty. Mati, which is directed intelligence. Japa, which means repetition of the divine name or mantra. And number 10 is Vrata, which is observance of sacred vows. So these are the 10 yama and niyama. So if you look at it, Rita is the cosmic order, Dharma is the ethical order, and Yama Niyama is the psychosomatic order. All these come as what is known as Shastra Pramanam Te, which is the mediating instrument, the Shastra, which gives you instructions on how one must behave. So, having understood this, one must also understand that these protect society. And now How does one protect oneself? To protect oneself, one must go to the performance of yajna or sacrifice. So Krishna explains in chapter 4, text 25, Devam eva para yagnam yoginah paryupasate brahmagnava pare yagnam yagneva pajjuvati. That one is to perform Vedic sacrifice, not for going to heaven or acquiring bhoga Aishwarya, but this is to be performed for the sake of purification. It is to be performed because it is a duty. We come to the next principle of the Vedas, which is a question of rina, which means you come into the world in debt. And essentially, the debt is to your ancestors who have given you the genes and this body. There is a debt to the sages who have given the philosophical truths and the Shaastra, and you have a debt towards the gods who sustain and who maintain you. And therefore, one has to perform sacrifice or yajna. Yajna or sacrifice is not really a ritual. It is a means to redirect you from selfishness to selflessness. It is to redirect you from selfishness to non-self. That non-self may be the rishis by performing rishi yajna, studying the scripture. It may be to perform shraddha and tarpana for your ancestors, which is to direct attention away from the self to the ancestors, the non-self. It is to direct your attention from self to the gods through the performance of Deva Yajna, which is fire sacrifice. You are also instructed to perform Nira Yajna or Atiti Yajna, whereby you contribute to the feeding of other people. And of course, having done all this, you engage in performing what is known as Bhuta Yajna, to the spirits, to the insects, to the birds. You must offer something before you eat. So these are the Pancha Mahayajnas, which are the fulfillment of your debt. This is the EMI that you need to pay so that your debt will be fulfilled. It is the EMI that is responsible or which is available. So Krishna has pointed out that this Deva Yajna in chapter 3 says, Saha Yajna Prajasishtva Puropacha Prajapati Anena Pravishad Yavam Eshavo Astva Ishtakammaduk. So God created this process by which you nourish the gods through sacrifice, and the gods will nourish you by providing you the necessities for living within the world. In fact, to live in the world without performing sacrifice, Krishna declares, is that it is considered to be sinful. Because annad bhavati bhutani parjanyadanda sambhava yagnad bhavati parjanyo yagna karma samudbhava. All your food comes from the performance of sacrifice. So direct your attention from self to non-self, which is to the devtas. And Krishna explains that if you do not perform sacrifice, that if you are leading a life centered around self, only dealing with I, me, myself, my ego, you will lead a life of sin. Evam pravartitam chakram nanu vartayatiha yah aghayor indriya aramo mogham partha sa jivati. So, aghayor indriya aramo, if you live only to gratify your senses, without directing your attention to non-self, to all the people you have a debt to, and towards God, who is the ultimate person who has given you everything. That is the cause of your suffering. So you have to understand that, like you have these Pancha Mahayagyas, the Vedas have what is known as sanskaras. And what are these sanskaras? These sanskaras are Vedic milestones. They are sacraments for the different milestones in your life. And each milestone which is made into a sacrament purifies you. Sanskara means that which purifies, that which not just purifies, but it also polishes the soul of all its impurities. So even before birth, there is Garbhadhana Sanskara, which, which prays to God, asking that a divine person may be born within the womb. Then there is Pumsavana Sanskara, which is prayers for the health and vitality of the fetus. There is Simantonayana Sanskara, which is protection of the pregnant mother as a ritual. So these are the three prenatal sanskaras. Then you have Jata Karma, when you welcome the newborn, first contact with nourishment and sacred sounds. There is Nama Karana, giving birth, giving a name to that child which is born. Nishkramana, when the child is taken out for the first time. Anna Prasana, which is first solid food being given. Chuda Karma, which is shaving of the head. Karna Veda, which is piercing of the ears. Vidyarambha, which is beginning of knowledge. Then you have in student life, you have Upanayana, which is entry into disciplined learning. Vedarambha, which is formal start of Vedic study. Keshanta, which is the first shaving of the beard. Samavartana, which is the completion of education. You have Vivah, which is marriage. It's a dharmic institution, not only a personal contract. You have various other various other sanskaras, and totally these sanskaras come to around 48. Originally, there were 64 sanskaras, but today only 48 of them are well known. Perhaps only 16 are practically performed. So each sanskara leaves a divine impression on the mind. It's a different occasion to remember God. So not just are you performing sacrifices and ceremonies in order to remember God and forget self, but you also perform these various milestones as a sacrament, these sanskaras, which leave a divine impression on the mind. All of these serve to purify the individual. What does this purification do? It suppresses, it attenuates, it reduces the tamagun and the rajagun identification, and it encourages sattva gun to rise within the person. So you may identify with sattva gun and acquire divine nature, but eventually you have to transcend even sattva gun by becoming gunatit. And how does one become gunatit? That has been already discussed in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, where Krishna says, Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samatityetan brahma bhuya kalpate. That when you are engaged undeviatingly, undistractedly, unfailingly in bhakti yoga, in devotion to God, you transcend the gunas. Then you become indifferent to the gunas. You don't interfere or identify with the gunas. Prakasham cha pravrittim cha moham eva cha pandava na dveshati sampravritani na nivritani kankshati. So the gunas have their own play, but you remain focused on God, you are the observer. So yes, the Vedas deal with the three gunas. They help you to transcend Rajagun and Tamagun, and through the restraints of Rita, Dharma, and Yama, Niyama, it helps you to restrain yourself from injuring or harming society and by performing the various sanskaras, including the Panchamahayagyas and also the various 48 sanskaras, you actually become purified. You come to the state of Sattva-gun. This is why Krishna gives the solution for the person who has rejected the scripture, that you follow the scripture and the scripture will purify you. And when scripture has purified you in Sattva Gun, you can then take to Avyabhicharena Bhakti, which will help you to become Gunatit, or which will help you to transcend the gunas altogether. With this, I will conclude the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. If there are any questions, I will be happy to take them. No one has any questions? All right. So, Hari Om, Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you.